This time in our Memes in Video Games quadrilogy, we decided to do some hard-hitting reporting. We wanted to find out exactly how memes find their way into games, and the mentality of the developers who throw them in. So we reached out to a former Xseed localizer named Tom, who's had their hand in dozens of game localizations. We asked Tom about the how and why of including memes in the games he worked on, and he told us, in general, memes, quotes, and references were used less frequently by me as my 8.5-year tenure at Xseed went on. I think for a lot of localizers, these sorts of things are kind of a beginner's trap. When you first start translating games, it's this whole new, exciting world, and you want to stretch your legs a bit by sneaking in certain things for the lols, as it were. But as you continue work in localization, I think you start to realize that that's kind of bad form, and mostly stop doing it. Tom had a rule where he'd only sneak in memes and references if the moment called for it, and would never use them in a serious scene. The first meme Tom recalls adding to a game was in his very first Xseed title, East 7, where a maid in the castle blurts out, "Die, dust, you don't belong in this world." This is of course a nod to a meme spawned from Symphony of the Night.
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
But the Japanese game simply used onomatopoeia captions of the maid using a feather duster. Tom told us, "I got a lot of flack from fans for that, and honestly, it's not something I would ever do nowadays. I kind of cringe a little when I look at that now." On the flip side, though, there is one place where memes really thrived, and where I never felt the slightest guilt including them in a localization, and that's added content. Added content, such as achievements, exist outside the game, and so developers and publishers were less strict about what went into these short blurbs, meaning they are ripe for memeing. But it's not just the localizers that squeeze in memes. Tom had another story to share. The time we were working on Rune Factory 4 is around when I started leaning away from memes and such, but to all of our surprise, the Japanese developers actually included some memes in the original script, quite a lot of them in fact, all referencing the classic arrow in the knee meme. We had started to get some criticism from fans for overusing memes and references in our localizations by the time we were working on Rune Factory 4, so we were making a conscious effort to tone down on things like that. And that's when we suddenly hit the treasure trove of Japanese arrow in the knee references, and kind of facepalmed a little. I forget if it was on our Twitter, our forums, or where exactly it was, but I do know that we made sure to assure fans that if they encountered any instances of that particular meme in the game, it wasn't our fault. This can be seen with one of the NPC travelers who references the infamous meme, saying, "Dungeon crawling, I'd love to go along, but a few years ago, I took an arrow in the knee, so..." Rune Factory 4 has more references to this exact same arrow to the knee meme, but several of them are never seen by the player. Every character who can accompany the player has a description to go along with them, which is viewable in the game's menu. Though there's also some characters that cannot join you, and thus their descriptions go unused. These include a number of soldiers, whose collective unused descriptions read, "Town soldier, tries not to take an arrow to the knee. Town soldier, keeps a close eye on those around him, worries about taking an arrow to the knee. Town soldier, likes charging at enemies, took an arrow to the knee once, but made a full recovery. Town soldier, dependable healer, no need to worry about his knees. Town soldier, goofy, but in a pursuit squad, often mistakes the knee for the elbow. Town soldier, powerful and good at using a shield, thinks about pizza more than he does tired old knee-related concerns. Town soldier with a penchant for stealth, doesn't care for pizza, and welcomes arrows in his knees, as they prove he can still feel." It seems as though the team at Neverland really loved Skyrim, enough that they'd even sneak references into unused data. Before we get to more facts, a quick word from this episode's sponsor, FanHome. FanHome is a new service dedicated to creating original and fully licensed models, along with lovingly illustrated magazines, which are shipped straight to your door. FanHome has teamed up with brands like Marvel, Star Wars, Naruto, and even Street Fighter to make incredibly detailed standalone and build-up models. To get your hands on them, all you need to do is choose a collection to assemble or a build-up model to construct yourself. Then, every month, you'll receive a piece of your collection or model. These are all original in-house designed models by Fanhome that you can't find anywhere else. And the same goes for the companion magazines. Just look at the quality. These Street Fighter figures are hand-painted to order by Fanhome and are incredibly well made, capturing the energy and excitement of an actual round of Street Fighter. Not only can you collect the Ryu and Ken, but this collection also features Chun-Li, Sagat, Guile, Blanca, M. Bison, Dalsim, Vega, and more. The models are PVC and vary between 3.5 and 5.5 inches in size. And of course, they're all officially licensed by Capcom. To get your hands on these incredible figures and more, check out the link on screen or at the top of this video's description. And now, back to the trivia. Our next meme comes from the Final Fantasy franchise, which has carved its way into the minds of gamers for decades, and into the world of memes along with it. Back in the day, some games would have bizarre translations, particularly during the SNES era, and many could be brushed off as just simply being bad or awkward. Final Fantasy IV's "You Spoony Bard" is one such line, with many considering the phrase to have just been the result of someone on the translation team making a simple mistake. But this is not the case, with the insult having been created solely for the game's translation. Clyde Mandolin from Legends of Localization has spent many hours looking through the early Final Fantasy scripts, and the gist of his understanding is that the dialogue box for battles in the game were very limited, so alterations had to be made to fit the text. The original Japanese essentially just said, "How dare you? It's not what you think. Shut up. Please listen to me. It isn't what you think." But this scene's dialogue couldn't be compressed enough when translated without losing a lot of context. So localizers decided to scrap the dialogue altogether and make their own. A new line was made, likely by a native Japanese speaker with limited English ability, who added the word "spoony," not knowing it was an antiquated word that was no longer in the popular consciousness. Regardless of why this sentence appears, it went on to become a staple of internet memes, and as a result would appear in even more titles over the years. This includes a multitude of Final Fantasy sequels like Final Fantasy X or Tactics, but also other games outside of Square Enix's catalogue, such as Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Trials and Tribulations, or Trinity Universe. A slightly more modern Square Enix title with a strong link to Final Fantasy is Kingdom Hearts. One of the most recognized traits of the series is that, to most people, the titles of each game are, just kind of a bit all over the place. With most games having sequels numbered in order, Kingdom Hearts loves to just throw a multiple of numbers, both with typical and Roman numerals, such as Kingdom Hearts 0.2 or Kingdom Hearts 2.8. The team clearly wanted to play on this oddity of the series, with Kingdom Hearts 3 starting out with a title screen which reads Kingdom Hearts 2.9, just to poke more fun at themselves as well as their audience. Save for just referencing themselves, however, the team also included a reference to a meme which sprung from something fairly distant from the Kingdom Hearts series: South Park. During the game's explanation of the purpose of treasure spheres, a subtle reference to the 3-step process out of South Park makes an appearance. Step 1. Shoot the sphere to activate it. Step 2. Connect the circuits. Step 3. Profit. This comes from Season 2, Episode 17 of South Park, in which the Underpants Gnomes explain their genius plot to collect underpants, profit. Microsoft's recent release of Halo Infinite seemed to go through a few states in the lead-up to its release, with one of the first previews of the game garnering, less than an ideal response from fans. The negativity of this response came in several forms, but it mostly came as criticism of the early state of the game's visuals, which garnered the game its own meme well before its release. This was actually a good thing in some ways, as Microsoft managed to make reference to Craig, the Halo Infinite Brute. The Brute enemy in question appeared in a video demo for Infinite, and was dubbed Craig by the internet community, with the name ultimately sticking and memes beginning to spread online like wildfire. Lucky for Microsoft, they were able to take the janky-ass face Craig out of the game, but not entirely. Instead, taking the joke on the chin, the game's developers gave Craig his own Easter egg. Located on the tower, the player must grapple their way up to the top of the structure, only doable with an upgraded grapple. Up on the top, a poster advertising the Craig Zeta Halo Tour 2560 can be found, with the Brute appearing to be playing across many of the locations from Infinite. It's even possible to find his greatest hits album, with iconic tracks like I Smile Inside, Popped in the Chin by My Friend, and The Day You Become a Meme. He might not be smiling, but Craig certainly left us all smiling in our hearts. Splatoon 2 is a pretty jamming game, and Nintendo are always ones to make references to popular online memes with their games, with some of those memes originating on their own platforms. On the release of the original Splatoon for the Wii U, the Miiverse, a now closed form of on-console social media for the Nintendo system, had a barrage of posts from fans going wild for Splatoon. One post made waves online for either its sheer innocence or stupidity, with user Domohead posting, "I wish squids were real." The post went viral and became a meme of its own. Making reference to this post, in Splatoon 2, Marina will state, "I wish humans were real." Not all too subtle, but hey, it's pretty fun regardless. Skipping over to another Nintendo title, by the time of the 3DS Pokemon titles, the company had spawned some fresh memes that had become part of the wider gaming zeitgeist, mostly thanks to Reggie. In X and Y, the last trainer that the player encounters before they enter the courtyard outside of the Elite Four's compound references Reggie's famous 2007 quote before demonstrating Wii Fit.
"My body is ready."
This reference comes late into the game, but in Sun and Moon, a reference to the catchphrase comes in very early on, when Professor Kukui orders his Rockruff to use its moves on him. Did you also know that the Japanese version of Super Mario RPG has a ton of references to anime? Or that there's a hidden secret within Earthbound that took decades to find? For a whole bunch of SNES facts, check out the video on screen. Coming up to the end of all of our shorter videos, I hope that you guys have been enjoying this last little batch, and you'll continue to enjoy what we produce in the future. We love you all, and I just wanted to say before we go that I really appreciate you all sticking around and for all of your positive feedback.